Welcome back to That Philly Sports Girl. I'm your host, Elise Person, and another Eagles win. An Eagle win that takes us back to the top of the NFC East, back to first place, and here we are, baby. I do have to say, though, isn't Daniel Jones tripping and falling on the breakaway touchdown so representative of the NFC East and just honestly 2020 as a whole? But in all seriousness, the Eagles pulled it out against the Giants in an epic nail-biter finish, beating the Giants 22-21 with a Carson Wentz pass to Boston Scott to win the game. An 18-yard touchdown. A throw by Carson Wentz that was just such a dime, and a catch by Boston Scott that was phenomenal. Carson Wentz talked after the game saying that the pass might have been a little high, but Boston Scott plays bigger than he is. And did he do that last night? Absolutely. 18-yard touchdown to solidify the game against the Giants. I will say, though, I was definitely getting really nervous in the fourth quarter, especially after the Giants' touchdown to Sterling Shepard. But then I had to remind myself, if anyone's going to blow this game, it'll be the Giants. And blow the win they did. The Eagles now have beat the Giants 8 times in a row, and man, does it feel just as good every single time. Top of the NFC East again. It feels good, baby. Number 1. Here we go. I also want to commend Brandon Graham with playing till the end and not taking any trips off, really this entire season. I felt like, granted, totally not the same circumstances whatsoever, but his sacked forced fumble, I felt like I was watching Super Bowl 52 again. He is just so consistent, and I love to see it from Brandon Graham. He's one of my favorite players because of how consistent he is. I love someone who's going to show up every single game and give 100% of his effort. Brandon Graham talked in the post-game press conference about the sack on Daniel Jones that was recovered by Vinny Curry at the very last minutes in the game yesterday. And he said that Jordan Mailata came up to him before the final drive and told him, act like Emerson, Brandon Graham's daughter, is watching. And Brandon Graham said that he thinks that Mailata saying that to him gave him a boost going into the final drive. And guess it did, because great job, Brandon Graham. Way to work. And I talked about it last week, and I'm going to talk about it again. Brandon Graham is such a constant for the Eagles defense, who I might add did not have a solid performance whatsoever yesterday, but we'll get into that later. But Brandon Graham as an individual has been stable and a core member of our Eagles defense for basically this entire 2020 season. We are now in week 7, and Brandon Graham is the only player in the NFL with 6 sacks and 9 tackles for loss. Just such great effort put forward by him. We can't ignore that. He's showing up every single week, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for showing up no matter the circumstances and playing 100%. I really appreciate it. I know the city of Philadelphia appreciates it. We really, just a big fat thank you to Brandon Graham. So a win is a win, but there was definitely some undeniable moments that were great last night, but also some moments that were just horrible at the same time. So let's start on the offense, to be picky. We come out and score a rushing touchdown on the first drive of the day, and I was so hopeful. Eagles, the first half offense, picked up most offense all season with 222 yards. And Carson Wentz just looked so great in the beginning of the game. And then all of a sudden, he went quiet. The Eagles' offensive production went quiet. And I just wasn't happy with the way really anyone on the Eagles' offense was playing, especially going into halftime and the entire third quarter. Where were we? We cannot be taking quarters off like this. The Eagles finished the day offensively 3 for 8 in the red zone. Wentz was also a little sloppy with balls being thrown. Granted, he is being rushed and facing such heavy pressure, and he's constantly on the run. And maybe this is why he's throwing all these risky passes, one of them which ended up being a pick in the end zone. But I don't know if it's his lack of time in the pocket, but he just needs to clean up these sloppy passes. Too many of them yesterday where that could have been a pick. Thankfully, it wasn't. He got lucky on that. But it just needs to be cleaned up. I guess it's just the whole Eagles offense, from the offensive line to the quarterback with Carson Wentz. And I know we say it every single week. He has to clean it up. He has to clean it up. But we were playing against the Giants, and there's really nothing crazy there. I mean, the Giants have a decent defense when you look at it on paper, but in games, they're not really showing up when they need to. So why did we let them take advantage of our offense as a whole yesterday? Right now, Carson Wentz leads the NFL in most sacked, quarterback hits, and turnovers. He has been sacked 26 times in 7 games. He's been hit 58 times in 7 games and has turned it over 11 times in these 7 games. So yes, the turnovers are not good, but it's all relative. The man has no protection. I mean, 58 hits in 7 games. That is too many, far too many. And then you know what's going to happen is eventually he's going to get hit so many times that he's going to get hurt, and then everybody's going to say, "Oh, well, Carson Wentz is injury prone." No, he's really not. When you look at his offensive line, he's getting hit 58 times a game and is getting up like nothing happened. And he is taking some seriously big hits. It's not like these hits are little pansy hits. He's being knocked down. He's being hit right in the ribs while he's throwing. They're just unacceptable hits that cannot be happening this frequently. So then, we were 3 for 8 in the red zone, but when we did convert in the red zone and actually score some touchdowns, we could not convert on the 2-point conversions. We were 0 for 2 in 2-point conversions, and for me, that comes down on Doug Peterson and play calling. I was not a fan of either of the play calls on the 2-point conversions yesterday. We score a touchdown, great, but then we have this play. I love the way that Carson Wentz is being active and mobile and running the ball, but we cannot expect him to do every single 2-point conversion. I mean, it was the same play, the very first 2-point conversion yesterday, that we called last week against the Ravens that didn't work. And after the Ravens game, Doug Peterson talked about, that was my play call. I need to fix my play calling. So then on the very first 2-point conversion in the next game, you're going to call the exact same play. I don't understand that. I think that really needs to be cleaned up. And like I said, I love that Carson Wentz is running the ball more, but we cannot expect him to be running it like that. Especially, it's not even quarterback sneaks. We're like letting him hold the ball for a second and then try to find a lane. Carson Wentz, you're a great runner, and I commend you for that, but you're a huge guy. Like, why don't we just quarterback sneak you right into the end zone on 1 yard into the end zone? I just don't understand that. So that's something that in the next 10 days, we need to watch some film. Doug Peterson needs to look at his playbook and figure that out, because I think that comes down on Doug Peterson and play calling. And even on the second 2-point conversion, we're in like a shotgun. Why are we in that? I don't understand that. So before we talk about the defense, I do want to compliment a specific Eagles player that really stepped up for me yesterday. While there was a lot of negative things that happened on the Eagles offense, there were some bright lights, and Richard Rodgers was one of them. He is now our only healthy tight end, and I'm really, really happy with how reliable he's been. He's a third stringer that was in the starting lineup yesterday. He has no business being in the starting lineup, but he's showing up. He finished the day completing 6 out of 8 receptions for 85 yards. That's more than what Zach Ertz has done for us this season before he got hurt. So thank you, Richard Rodgers, for stepping up. I'm loving it. And he has no business being in the starting lineup, like I had said moments earlier, but he was called upon, he stepped up, he took on his role, and he did his job. There was no frills, there was no complaining, there was nothing. He just did his job, and I love that about him. So that, I say thank you, Richard Rodgers. Thank you for having more offensive production than one of our top tight ends, Zach Ertz, and just showing up and doing your job, Richard Rodgers. I loved it. So now moving on to the defense. Did we feel like stopping the run at all yesterday in the second half? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. As funny as it was, Daniel Jones' 80-yard run, so funny because he fell, but then you look at it from an Eagles defensive perspective, we almost let Daniel Jones run for a 90-yard touchdown on us. That is unacceptable. We are so much better than that as a defense, and we just cannot allow that. We let Daniel Jones completely take advantage of our defense and just haul down to the end zone with even our secondaries and secondary safeties, we were hauling after him. We couldn't catch him. That's unacceptable. I don't want to see that really ever again, honestly. The Giants offense as a whole in the second half finished with 165, or excuse me, they finished the game as a whole 160 rushing yards, with 120 of 7 of them coming in the second half. We just let the Giants do whatever they wanted to offensively in the second half. Almost 70% of their rushing yards came in the second half. 127 out of 160 in the second half. Unacceptable. Also, not to mention, the Giants are without Saquon Barkley. So where are these coming from? It's just totally unacceptable. The Eagles defense needs to be playing a full 4 quarters, not taking any trips off. And the Eagles defense and Doug Peterson should be so thankful that the offense pulled this one out after Sterling Shepard's first down that was not a first down. Granted, this doesn't completely come down on the defense. Doug Peterson has to be quicker with throwing the challenge flag. But I don't want to see the Eagles defense even putting us in that position, especially against the Giants of all teams. They have nothing that's really respectable as an offense. So why are we putting ourselves in the position to have to throw the challenge flag and then allowing them to get a touchdown? So this was a huge play, honestly, and just a total lack of recognition on Doug Peterson's end, because if the Eagles don't score those last 2 touchdowns in the remaining minutes of the fourth quarter, that game would have come down to the challenge flag not being thrown. Because the lack of the challenge flag being thrown, if it was thrown, it would have been overturned. They would have not gotten the first down, and then it would have been 4th down, and the Giants most likely would have taken a field goal. So instead, we are late throwing the challenge flag. The Giants get the snap off, it stands, and then they get a touchdown. So thank goodness the Eagles pulled off that win offensively, because that totally would have come down on Doug Peterson and the defense and would have been ultimately the reason for the Eagles' loss. So just like the Eagles' offense, there were some horrible things defensively, but there were also some, like I said, shining lights defensively. There was 2 forced turnovers in the Eagles' first half, a Jalen Mills pick, and a fumble recovered by Rodney McLeod. I also want to compliment someone that it's not a secret that I dislike, Nathan Geary. I think Nathan Geary yesterday, for the most part, actually played pretty hard and made his presence known on the field. He was hustling, and he came up with a big demanding sack in the third quarter. So I like to give credit where credit is due. Not a secret that he's not my favorite player, but if you're hustling, I'm going to notice that, and I'm going to acknowledge that. I'm not going to ignore that just because I don't like you as a player, really. But I saw it, Nathan Geary, from you yesterday, and keep it up. If you can keep that up, then maybe I'll start to enjoy your company a little more on the field. So now on to the NFC East. This past Monday, the Cowboys fell to the Arizona Cardinals 38-10. Andy Dalton finished the night 34 for 54, throwing for 266 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 picks. This weekend, the Cowboys face off against the Washington football team with a 1 p.m. kickoff. The Cowboys currently have an overall record of 2-4, and the Washington football team has an overall record of 1-5. And thankfully, we know how the Giants did in Week 7. First place, baby. Here we come, playoffs. Woo! Now looking towards Week 8, we have a nice 10 days off. It is very important to look forward to keeping our spot and holding it at first place. We face off against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 8, and Dallas is obviously always a big game for the Philadelphia Eagles, huge rivalry. But the way the NFC East is shaping out right now, we need this win if we actually want to think about playoffs in all seriousness. Like I said, we have a long break till Dallas, so we need to focus on getting some guys healthy. Deshaun Jackson last night posted a picture. He's in a boot now. We need to be focusing on, hopefully we can maybe get some players like Dallas Goedert back. I'm not sure, but even Lane Johnson is now down with a knee injury. So these are just things we need to, in the next 10 days, take this time off and try to shape our offensive line to be better, especially if we're going to be down Lane Johnson. Try to just shape our entire Eagles offense to try to be able to work with the injuries that we are dealing with. So these 10 days, we really need to focus on health. And also, I think that game film is going to be such a beneficial thing in these next 10 days. There were a lot of things last night, offensively and defensively, that needs to be cleaned up. But I think if we take this time to break it down, study it a little bit, maybe we can improve on these things that are going wrong for us, both offensively and defensively. So that's going to do it for today. I'm That Philly Sports Girl, and I'll see you next week.